Hi, everybody. I appreciate your patience with our technical difficulties today. I work in costumes and tangible things. I'll let you know. Yeah. I'm Lauren Lowell. I'm a 30-year costume designer. I'm head of production design and technology at Illinois State University. I run an MFA program in costume design, and I recently published a book called Dressing Historical Characters. It actually has Wendy Roby on the cover because she and I worked at the Shakespeare Festival together and became really good friends. So she's actually the cover art of the front. Like, that's my ultimate professional Twin Peaks nerdiness costume. So it's very cool.
I'm Laura Haskell. I have been in costumes for almost 25 years. My background's in theater. I was an actor and director beforehand, like a lot of people end up being. But more recently, I've worked in themed entertainment, making mascot-style costumes, animatronic skins and puppets for theme parks, national touring productions. So, that makes you think of a company. You're probably right. So.
Graciously, we were asked today to talk about the close of Twin Peaks, which I know I've always nerded out about. It's always been I've been very interested in it. So. We've kind of thrown together a PowerPoint. Do you want me to just? What should we do?
I would say you go for it. Okay. Start out, and then once we get to the end of yours, you'll step in mine.
Oh, good. It's coming up mostly. This is good. So, in entertainment design, something that I have always loved, because I started as a performer too. And when I also like clothes, and I realized that a costumer does very similar things that an actor does. We're just putting the messages in the clothing, and we're working with the actors to pull it together. And the number one goal is always for the clothes to look like clothes and not costumes. I mean, I have people tell me all the time, "You're a costume designer? What does that mean? You're doing Elsa and Anna for Purdy?" No, I'm telling stories. So we're storytellers too. And I teach budding production design students of all levels about world building and about the collaboration that happens and that everything is intentional. And you all know David Lynch. You know that everything is intentional. Even that Happy Meal box that was in the corner that we saw yesterday. Everything has a reason. That whole world is designed. And so one thing that when I first came here in 2012 for the Twin Peaks Festival, Miss Mary got me out here finally after many years of coming herself. What I was really fascinated by seeing where the filming locations were, based on where they were in my head, having watched the show so many times, and then where they were in reality, I felt like that David Lynch was making Twin Peaks into a doppelganger of North Bend, Snoqualmie, right? You know, things like you're standing at the sheriff's station and the mill's right there. Well, it's not in the show, but it is. And so because the show has so much playing with dualities, I started looking at the clothes that way too. His clothing does the same thing. It takes all of these pieces of a time and place and puts them together in a different way that is uniquely David Lynch. We see it across a number of his works, but it's also uniquely Twin Peaks. And so in the North Bend Snoqualmie reality versus the Twin Peaks, universe, we're taking those same pieces and putting them together in a way that is not the same. And if I see many people here that were probably alive when this came about the first time around. If you remember fashion from the late 80s going into the 90s, we had grunge emerging. We had this kind of shabby chic situation going on with the clothes. And then David Lynch's love of the 50s and nostalgia gets layered right on top of that. And it creates a universe that didn't exist. In hindsight, it's well, of course, but at the time, it was different. Like the big grunge bands hadn't broken out of Seattle as big and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a really kind of cool time capsule that both was looking forward in time, but also influence the time really hugely. But both of those worlds embrace what is quintessentially Pacific Northwest in spring. Which we all know, we're all here. My hair got really frizzy today, I really tried. But the rain, the humidity, the warmth, both worlds needed to exist in a place that exists through layering clothes and kind of a coziness and all that stuff. Something that right at the top of episode 1 is turned upside down when Laura is discovered wrapped in plastic, which is the least coziest thing you could ever be wrapped in, right? If you think of those opening scenes, they build that and the pace, and he's like, oh, this is here, and that's got to be the least uncomfortable thing ever. And so when a production team gets together to work on a project, and we know the people that worked with David Lynch worked with him quite a bit, from his performers to his production team, they spoke his language. We still have so many directors that do that, Del Toro and Anderson and Burton, all those people. So they already spoke the language. They already kind of knew what David liked. And when a production team has to establish what I call the rules of the world. So we're taking something that is realistic, but we're telling a story with it. And those rules are intentional to help tell that story. There's no such thing as historical accuracy. Like, even when I do a historically accurate show, the best case in point is Bridgerton, right? It's set in a time and place. There are loose things that nod to the neoclassic era, but it is not neoclassic by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a fantasy. Like, it's a, so he's doing the same thing. So before we get into anything specific, we got to know what the rules are, right? So that usually applies to the design elements that are chosen to put into things. So, for example, he uses a tight color palette, right? We know based off of the Black Lodge, so we got a lot of white, black, red, but also tons of neutrals. And then he brings in greens and blues and teals. And we know that blue is a constant with David Lynch across his stuff. What I am so into color when it comes to my own design work, and what is always really interesting is tapping into the cultural subconscious of color for the people who are viewing it. Because like if you do, like white means purity in our culture, but it means death in Asian culture. So you have to understand that. And one thing that David does over and over again is he turns those associations upside down. So like things like an intense red, usually like the stereotype in costuming is that intense red means danger, warning, lust. And I argue that in Twin Peaks, it's a neutral color because it's used so much. And the fact that the tone of red he uses is intensified by the color and the lighting, but also matches the blood they use in all of the scenes. The fact that that becomes a neutral color is really interesting to me. So the texture palette. So what does the world feel like? He uses wools, plaid, and more plaid, so much plaid, chunky knits, stripes, but he also uses very intentional solids. And I know that solids are something that can be very, very flat on camera, very, very flat on stage. So when he's using them, it's very intentional. I almost always, I work in a big house, like a big theater, and even something I want to read as a solid texture usually has texture up close. Under the lights, it gives it richness and that sort of thing. And of course, in the late 80s and 90s, battling camera technology and stuff, choices were made for that. But he's intentional, which we see even when we get to high def, where that's all there and it sticks in this texture palette. His silhouette, as I mentioned, is nostalgia influenced. It's contemporary to the time, 89, 90, but heavily influenced by 50s stuff. And not like the big fat poodle skirts, right? But definitely the saddle shoes, the more narrow line of Dior's work, which is not fit and flare, it's fit and slim. So I think Rizzo from Grease, that stereotype, which we see with Audrey over and over again. And then, of course, the symbolism of it all, dualities. There's so much playing with duality in this world, as we all know. Dualities between characters, duality sense within self. I think it's so interesting that one of the opening shots where we see both Josie and Catherine together looking at Laura's body out on the lake, that they are wearing black and white, like pure black and white. And our associations, because, cowboys and all those movies, black is the bad guy and white is the good guy. But even by the end of this episode, you're seeing that, okay, Catherine's not what she seems. And later we find out that Josie's definitely not what she seems. And so there is no pure, other than Bob himself, there's really no pure good and evil in a lot of our characters. They're always struggling with this duality. And at first it comes out in black and whites, but then it starts coming out in reds and greens, which I think is really interesting because I'll get there. A note on the broadcast TV version versus what we saw in 2017. Technology changes, and even the geniuses that are around this world can't predict where it's going to go. Although I do remember sitting in a BCA class, and they were talking about what HD TV was going to look like when we were, but that was even in the 90s, right? So remember that when this came out, we were in a land of VHS. We were in a land of different kinds of TVs. And I remember, because like Mary and I would watch this on VHS, and then I had copies that were copies of VHS after we weren't living together anymore. And you couldn't see things like the names on envelopes. You couldn't see like the sheriff's name because the cameras don't pick up what they pick up now. And so of course they have to be intentional so that it reads on camera what the audience sees, because the art's what the audience sees, right? It doesn't matter what happens in the studio, what is being delivered. You know, the Addams Family is filmed in black and white, but their set is actually peach and green. So that was what looks good on camera. So there's a lot of texture that is in some of the stuff that's subtle that we didn't see until they remastered it. And I remember, like, even we could read the name on the thing, or there was an envelope. Vinny will talk about the envelopes with the wrong names on them and the wrong addresses, because they didn't care about that because they didn't predict where TV was going. But the fact that when we started watching it and it was still all intentionally deliberate within our rules or our world kind of blew my mind. So the images on the right here are 2017, where the ones on the left are the video. And I put this one in here. That's totally Charlene and Josh Mystery Science Theater 2000 from yesterday, because I was trying to get a lot of my pictures I took stills on my computer as I was going back through it. I couldn't get a good image of this, but the Doc Hayward's coat, that plaid, does not show in the original. But it's definitely there. And when it was blown up at the North Bend, it's like, oh, yep, it's definitely there. But then, like, these stripes would have made the camera go really funky in 89. But we don't see that in 17, you know, in the Christmas of this sort of thing. Harry's jacket, that jacket he wears all the time, has a really kind of odd plaid in it. That I didn't notice when it was in VH land. So I think that's something interesting to address when you're talking about the OG stuff and the return, because the OG stuff it would come out once a week. We couldn't rewatch it right away, and then as the fandom grew and it became what it is now, and we started streaming it, and we could. That was pretty cool. We started finding all the details. So then when they had to deliver this season, they already knew that we'd be looking for all the details, and whether they were intentional. It's just good production design. I think they're just so consistent with the world. But anyway, so black and white. Black and white's the most obvious. When you're telling a very common trope in entertainment design is to show, you know, one force in white, one force in black. We see it with Star Wars. We see it with, you know, all the stuff. And but like I said again, they turn things upside down all the time with this, and it's kind of like the amount of women wearing black dresses that aren't dangerous, but then he throws one in there that is, you know, he's always messing with you. The saddle shoes, which was pointed out, they were painted. Yeah, we paint shoes a lot in the theater to get what we want. You can't always go to the store and buy what you want when you have something in your head, so you got to make it. So black and white, definitely there, and almost always that backdrop of red. So we're in this world of the Black Lodge. I'm totally dominating. Sorry.
No. Separated. True. I'll get to my.
Well, and what I think is also pretty cool is that I see the initial introduction of the black and white as a fighting for a balance, right? When Cooper comes in for the first time, somebody said this yesterday at the Unwrapped, he is his most balanced version of himself. And he has the plainest black tie and the plainest white shirt and the plainest dark suit, which always looks black, but I understand is actually navy blue. But it always looks black on screen. And as he's going through all of this and putting things together, you see more and more red. I have a whole slide about his ties because there's so much red. He gets out of balance. Leland Palmer, well, so red is a neutral, right? Red is put in here in such an intense color, and it matches the color of the blood. But we see it so much when we become desensitized to how bright it is. It becomes kind of a color of safety instead of warning, which is what we often associate it with. And you know, even like here where Leland's dancing uncontrollably in the Great Northern, he's got these bold red stripes in his sweater. But what I think is really interesting is that when he comes out, well, this is he's like, I'm back, but this is when he comes out from the screen and he's changed, his hair's changed color. He is solidly black and white. He's in balance again, but he's Bob. He's no longer fighting the Leland Bob thing, which is, I think, is really interesting. So then I started picking up on this red-green duality. Black and white is so stereotypical, and David Lynch is not stereotypical, right? So we get used to that. He starts throwing in these other things. And so there starts being this, what I consider a duality between performative information and truth, false information and pure joy, pure love, these kinds of things. And it starts coming out in this strange duality of red and green, which as an American, I associate with Christmas, right? But as a designer, I know they are complementary colors. And the cool thing about complementary colors is they intensify each other. You put them next to each other and they look even more intense. So in the same way, that's a high contrast of the black and the white, but there's a magic there where it gets like even more intense. Even down to the fact that towards the end of season 2, Jerry Horn has a red and white striped shirt with a green and red tie. I have never in my life come across a tie that looks like that. It's so intentional. That was so creative for that moment to illustrate where he was at. And when Cooper is out of his black and white FBI uniform, he's almost always in red plaid and green corduroy pants, and sometimes with that little puffer vest on top. He's looking for a new, like internally, spiritual, looking for a new kind of balance to that duality. Even at the end, Wendell Merrill here, where he's got Leo captive, and Leo starts to kind of like, we actually have a redeeming quality about him when he cares about Shelley. He's in red. That's the safe color. And then Wyndham, well, he's Wyndham, it's hard to explain, but he's in green. And it's like that little same kind of moments. I love this scene. This is one of the early scenes where we see the teal, and I'll come back to the teal. But in this scene, Shelley's taken the laundry from the truck that has the bloodstained shirt on it, right? She doesn't know that yet, but it's almost like he's in this stasis world, and she's about to find the truth, right? She's about to find something out. There's something real going to be revealed there. And because green is my favorite color, I started fixating on the scenes where we see only green. Like, what does that mean by comparison? And I found over and over again, there were moments where characters were either being very real with each other and very honest, or they were expressing pure joy in a way that they hadn't felt, like that was almost overwhelming, or they were making a huge truth discovery and revealing that to somebody. This is Donna and her in the station. This was a hard still to get. They go to Owl Cave and they've got those helmets on, which look like they're black, until the owl flies and the flashlights go. I'm like, holy shit, those helmets are green. I've never seen green helmets. That's so intentional. Like that they're finding a truth in that moment. So I found that really interesting. The scene with Donna and her mom, which is very touching. One of the few moments I actually like Donna. She's very green, and she doesn't usually wear the green very often. Well, then we come around to blue. And we know that David Lynch is, he's obsessed with this color blue. The blue, to me, particularly as it's used in Twin Peaks and other places, it always occurs again when a secret's about to be revealed, something that is ethereal or otherworldly is about to be revealed, or somebody might be somewhat in danger. This picture of is Maddie right before Leland pops out behind the screen. She's got that blue chenille robe, which I own, and I wish I had bought it. It's the only thing I have.
I've been looking for that.
I have it in my costume stock. I'll steal it for you. But it's kind of, and then Sarah's here in red. She's in the comfort color, and and Maddie's in the blue. And he pops out, and he's so changed. That's alluding to that moment to me. Annie shows up, and yes, she's in the teal of the diner, but she's got a blue sweater on. Even at the end, when Cooper reveals that Bob's in Cooper, he's wearing blue pajamas. Like, is very, very, very intentional. This is the scene where Leo suddenly moves in the wheelchair for the first time, right? And Shelley's got this really bright blue robe on. This is the night that Major Briggs comes back from being in the woods, and Charlotte's wearing and even the log lady, which is Wyndham Earl, dressed up as the log lady, is in that bright blue. So, like, if you pick up on that, you start watching those things, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's so intentional. And then to explain the teal, when you're watching the first season, you establish these neutral colors, the black and the red, the bright red, and you're going along, and all of a sudden you see these bright teal uniforms, and they feel really out of left field, especially when you look at them in the context of the diner. Like, most business people, they'd match the interior a little bit more. So I have the conjecture that because teal is an equal amount of blue and green, and a lot of stuff, a lot of truth, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of things come out in the diner, that's got to be the reason he chose that. And that repeats in the return with Diane's costumes. A lot of truth comes out of her that way. But Cooper's ties. So with this information, and I can't be like hardcore, I don't know what it all means. It's just my opinion, just looking at how things come together. But this is where we first see him, right? And he's in the most balance, as it was said yesterday. White shirt, black tie, dark suit. And he goes on all this conflicting information, trying to figure stuff out, and all this points he's in a bright red tie, right? And I remember that more than the black tie in a lot of ways. But then in the return, when we have the copy of Cooper, and he puts on that, it's right back to that balanced black and white suit, like the copy. So I find it interesting, and I like to think in different scenes. Okay, that tie's got more red in it. Is he feeling more comfortable in Twin Peaks? That one's all black and white. Is he more in balance? Like those kinds of things I find really interesting. And then in the there's the still, or I guess I didn't put it in here. When he's in the Black Lodge, it's the most red and the most non-geometric tie that we see him in, which also, we all know about the Lodge. So the return, there's some really interesting things to pick up in the return, in my opinion, where they've taken these rules. You've had 3 different lead costume designers on this, and Norris didn't leave a Bible. A Bible is what we call... it kind of catalogs the show, right, where everything came from. It will have the sketches in it. Like this is a rendering of Diane for this costume here. It has all of that kind of stuff in it. So if something were to happen in the show, you could recreate it. Well, all that Norris left was a blue suit and a dark tie. Because in the pilot episode, a lot of the clothes were their own. Sherilyn Fenn has talked about how a lot of Audrey's looks came from her closet. They didn't know if it was going to get picked up. Not, a lot of money wasn't put into it. But then TV shows, they're an animal in the way that they are put together. And so I'm sure they were joking yesterday at the Unwrapped about things coming from United Colors of Benetton and Liz Claiborne. You knew they were running over to the mall to try to figure out what fits in this world, right? And so they may not have done a lot of sketches. They may not have done a lot of recording. So that by the time Sarah Markowitz comes on and Nancy, they have to do what I've done, right? They have to figure out how to speak Lynch and how to fit into this world. So, but I also feel like each designer takes the rules and twists them a little bit. You see a lot more red and green when Sarah Markowitz comes in. You see a heightened version in the return. Now they are battling the fact that they're delivering this to us, right? They know we're going to nitpick everything. They know that we know it's intentional. And so in some ways they're kind of trying to build the Easter eggs that we've had so much fun finding over the years, which means we're either going to love it or we're going to hate it. Because when you're trying to be that intentional purposely, it's not as magical as the original run. But they do some cool things. I love this outfit. She's got the red, she's got the teal, she's got the green, she's got the black. It's all there. That is so intentional. When she's talking about what happened with her, she's in that green sweater, like the rules are still applying to all of us. And then I found this side by side online. Her kimono and his pajamas, they're almost doppelgangers. Like if you take the light and make it dark and you make that, they're like the same pattern. How crazy is that they were able to come up with that? They may have had something printed because they had a lot more money to do the return than they did the original. And you can print fabric into whatever you want it to be nowadays. But even the green, the Dougie green, right? Where he's kind of a clone. He's just like, he's just not there. It's amplified and it's uncanny in the same way that he's kind of moving through life. So I find that kind of interesting. That's me. That's
Oh no, I have to talk. I'm not a costume professor, so I do have to have notes to talk. I don't necessarily agree with all of the theories that she has, but that's true.
That's what's fun about
This
it.
is what Twin Peaks is part of what's so fun about it for me. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of what other people write, and some of it I'm like, yeah, this is a bad take. But it's part of the beauty of it in my mind. That there are so many different aspects of the show that we can study of Lynch's art and of the mysticism, the truth behind all of that. And I think that not everything was necessarily intentional in a way that I think a lot of people maybe believe. But if we go by Lynch's idea that everything is cosmic, that ideas are in the universe, that it all comes together, I just realized that those peacocks are the same as inside of the hotel room in Firewalk with Me. Sorry, distracted.
They may have come from that hotel.
Maybe.
It was intentional.
That's so funny. But distracted. But anyway, if we believe that these things are out in the universe, that ideas are out there, then maybe things happen because they were meant to happen, or maybe something that they used for something then planted an idea that became a greater thing later on, even if they didn't recognize it in the moment. So anything really could be an answer to a question that's posed. And it's really all about our interpretation, our personal experiences, and what we bring to it, more than even what's intended by the universe, because we're never going to get the answers that we would like to have from them.
Well, the answers can be so personal.
Yeah. So, and if we did get the answers, then it would really be unsatisfying, honestly. It's more fun to wonder. So my love specifically of Twin Peaks costumes started. How do I
You should be able to just hit, yeah.
This is what started. This is what started me loving specifically Twin Peaks costumes. I adored the sweater and wanted one for myself. So I started looking it up, just trying to figure out, I wonder if I could find this exact one. Old clothes are out there. So started out searching for that, and then it turned into looking for more stuff and just finding things and watching the show and saying, I wonder if I can find that on all sorts of different things. About 2 years ago, I started an Instagram account, Pine Weasel Fashion Show, just to log things where I could have them all together. So I've got some of the stuff that I found on there, but then I've fallen way behind on actually putting stuff together on there. So a lot of these items that I have up here are on there, and some of them might have been remiss. I feel like it's important to do this work, both finding things if people are so inclined, and doing the research into and the interviewing and talking to people about it, because those people aren't going to be around forever. Obviously, we've lost a lot of people in every aspect of Twin Peaks, but also just the prevalence of fast fashion and stuff wearing, it's going to go away. I put a note. I don't know if there's Labyrinth fans here, but it was a handful of years back. Somebody found in unclaimed luggage from who knows when the suit of Hoggle, and it was just in a suitcase. Don't know how it got there.
Oh,
so it's like
wow.
on display at the unclaimed luggage place now. So not in great condition.
I was gonna say, because the Henson exhibit just came through locally where I am. They had like the ball gown and those kinds of things, but like Hoggle?
Yeah, just lost in luggage. And so if somebody hadn't seen it and been like, I know what this is, that
It would have been gone.
somebody would have been like, oh, this is falling apart latex or whatever from back in the day. I wanted to shout out. So there is, if anybody's a fan of X-Files, there's a museum that some super fans started in central New York, that they were collecting actual screen used items, props, costumes, just whatever they could get their hands on, in addition to, fan items, t-shirts, things, and they had so many items. Chris Carter, who's the creator of the show, found out about them, contacted them, was like, I have a bunch of stuff I'm trying to clean out the property. You want to buy it? And they opened this museum. It's open all the time. It's so specific, but I love the work that they're doing to preserve all of these items and to put the work on display, because it's so much work. The hand,
The civilians don't understand. Well, it's invisible work, kind of. In the theater, you see the sets being loaded in, the lights being aimed. The costumes just show up.
Yeah.
And there's so much work. I'm working on a show right now that has over 400 pieces in it and 141 looks. Nothing was built. Everything was purchased. And even my colleagues are like, well, that's easy. You just pull it. No, you see your face. And there's so much that goes into sourcing and pulling and adapting and fitting and getting it. We don't just take stuff off the rack and put it in the show because we don't want it to look lived in and look like clothes and not costumes. And so
specific to the character.
Yes, it's all intentional.
Yeah.
Mostly intentional.
Yeah. But, if there's things like the giant chess piece that just appears on screen. You don't see that made, but it's like, that's a lot of work.
Somebody did that.
The idea of being able to go and see something like that in person is really cool. So if you're an X-Files fan, I highly recommend visiting the museum sometime. I really love character study and examining things from a psychological standpoint. Wardrobe can be a great subset of that. I think an important aspect of the world of Twin Peaks is the town and the people who live in it. That's paramount for me. I know that some people will prefer the mysticism, the different aspects of it, but I just love the people, the people in it, in the original series specifically. The another thing is that costumes and clothing often get dismissed because it's, women care about clothes. Women wouldn't care about anything that was women's work.
I would say it's to this day, costumers get paid less than scenery, lighting, props people because they sew.
Yeah.
And it's women's work. And it's usually it's women and non-straight men that are working in that field.
Yeah. But it's also dismissive because just looking at it as decoration, as opposed to, every single one of us chose specifically what we're wearing today.
I would say the rules of the world are very much intact in this world right now, which is something that I've always loved about coming out to the fest. We look at the pictures and everything, because we understand the rules of the world and we're all kind of like cosplaying in it a little bit.
Yes.
So you look around this room and say, yep, these are
Twin
Peaks people.
Choosing things based on how we want to feel or how we want other people to feel about us or see us. It might be an aspect of masking, creating some armor almost to protect us. I'm scrolling through anything. Did I have other things? Not quite yet.
Everybody can't see the next slide. I'm used to seeing the next slide.
Yeah. Well, I meant to put in notes about that, but I got distracted with trying to had some issues with sending things back and forth. But the creation of character is largely, people think of it as a marriage between the actor and the script and the director, but costuming is a really big aspect of that, especially with David Lynch. I know that he, the reason I had this specifically is Cheryl Lee, I forget which one it was. If it was at the Q&As that she did last year at the show screenings of Fire Walk with Me, I think she talked about being fit with the costumes is integral in understanding her characters. In another interview, she had talked about the look for Carrie Page, that she wasn't really sure who this was and what the character was, what was going on with it. But she'd go and the costumers would put something on her and send her to David, and it was his reaction to it and what he said and the things that he was like, change this and I want more of this and everything. Gave her a sense of what the character was. I know a lot of his communication about things like that was not necessarily verbal in speaking about the character themselves.
Well, that's true of a team that works together over and over again. They often have a nonverbal language.
Mhm.
I talk about that with my students all the time, like between me and my pattern makers and that sort of thing. If we have a performer in and we're doing a fitting, there's nothing more awkward than being an actor standing in a fitting. Let me tell you, you've got people working on clothes and talking about how they do or they don't fit and all that kind of stuff. So you try to minimize that talk because you want to build the character. You don't want to play into any insecurities or anything that the performer has. And so there's a lot of that kind of stuff that happens on a good team. And David was good with put a team together.
Yeah, and it's different than, because a lot of productions, they'll design the look of a character before anybody's cast in it, but these were very specific to the actor, the place, the time, everything. Note also, it's different than some productions, some shows will have like, at the end you'll see like so-and-so's wardrobe provided by Ralph Lauren, or it's not about specifically costumes a character. It might be more about what benefits the
Product placement.
them financially, more than telling a story of the characters. And he was very, very much about the characters above all, and telling the story. Yes, as she noted, a lot of the initial wardrobe did come from the performer's actual closets. I hope all of you follow 1400 River Road and read that blog. She is absolutely incredible, just an amazing person. But one thing specifically, Sherilyn Fenn was at Lexington Comic and Toy Convention last year, and we went and saw her. She took a printout of everything Audrey wore in the original series and had her mark everything that was hers. And it was more than a third of the looks overall were fully her clothes. I wore my tree sweater there, and I was talking to Sherilyn, and she just suddenly screamed. She's like, "You have my sweater." She said that was hers. She didn't get it back. Production lost her sweater. So they're like, "If you find one of those, you let me know." And it's like, it was hard enough for me to find one. So, sorry, Sherilyn. But that was horrific to me as a costumer. Like the idea of taking an actor's personal name and losing it.
Or restocking or whatever.
Yeah, there was another the cashmere sweater that she wears there. She wore that for a lot of publicity shots. They put clamps on it to make it fit and stretched it out and ruined it. So again, like,
and this is why Actors Equity makes us like wrench their clothes.
Yep. Yeah, but it's these were all three items that were from her personal wardrobe. And they were all vintage items. I think that's a lot of idea behind Twin Peaks is this vintage stuff, these old clothes. But honestly, in the beginning, it's Audrey. She's the only one that's in vintage clothes. A lot of things were mixed together to give, the idea looking at it looked kind of like a vintage setup, but it was all modern clothing except for her. In season 1, starting in season 2, we saw more actual vintage pop up on some different characters.
Well, and I read on one of the blogs that all the stuff that Diane wears in return is vintage stuff.
Mhm.
Like it's going back to that.
Yeah. Let's see. So the designers, as was stated, they shopped at a lot of department stores and resale stores. And part of that was getting things that did look lived in, that looked like they would have been in somebody's wardrobe of that time period. Not giving them something bespoke. The only thing I follows that is that Agent Cooper's suits were custom made. That was the one. Sherilyn noted too that her look in this was meant to echo Cooper. That was a deliberate choice. Let me find my note.
The bright red lipstick on her, she's like Josie too.
Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting to note because, it's like, I think she's figuring herself out. A lot of the vintage look, it's, again, to note, she's this daughter of the person who owns like what might be the only department store in town. she doesn't wear a single thing that would have been sold at Horns. I think that's very deliberate for her. It's choosing to not be a fashion plate for her dad, and yet looking amazing doing it. So the clothing can be, again, a kind of armor in that. And I think that the emulating Cooper's look while she's figuring out how she feels about him, because does she like him even? Like him? Or does she want to be him? She's got this person who's come in from outside that's the only person who has ever been really nice to her, that has treated her like, like her own person. So I think that her emulating his look is a really important moment there. Yes, there are a lot. To note the difference with when Audrey does the pageant, she still just looks like herself. She's the only person who still looks like herself. She's wearing just a regular tea-length dress that you would have maybe seen on her elsewhere. Donna looks like a completely different person. So the idea of like her life has been turned upside down right now. She's dealing with a whole lot. Maybe it's a rebellion. Maybe it's not being sure of who she is. These are a Benetton sweater. We talked about that there were a lot of the same brands in there. That's what I love is they actually got the sweater for the movie as well. That Moira Kelly wore the same sweater. I love those details. The blue sweater is, I believe, a Darlene sweater, which is the same as the tree cardigan. So that is one where they started using some of the vintage clothing, but this was modern to the show. These are both also Benetton sweaters. And I think it's interesting to look at it as they're the same brand out at the same time, but you wouldn't necessarily see them on one of the other characters. Looking at it in that direction. Let's see. Oh, these are also Benetton. These are ones that, I mean, looking at the Argyle pattern on Lucy's sweater, I'm sorry, I didn't get a better picture of this, is what made me like, that's gotta be a Benetton. And then later we see Annie wearing the same sweater, which is just a really cute detail to me, that she borrowed her sister's sweater.
She did just leave the convent.
Yeah.
That was up.
Next. Yeah, that she got the same sweater on. This is one I haven't identified. I thought it was Benetton for a while, but this bit is a different color, and the Benetton ones that I've seen that were similar, they were the same color in the beside Argyle. But comparing other pictures of it, they're the same sweater. So then it's maybe she just went in and bought it from the department store. Maybe Donna got rid of it because, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to wear that again.
No.
So it's
We have connotations.
Yeah. It's time to, we'll switch to other stuff. So I don't know if other people, judging from some of the outfits that I've seen today and other times this weekend, if other people are interested in finding the clothing like I am. Like I am. So for me, years of experience in clothing and looking at it and thinking about the terminology used, obviously that gives me a head start on a lot of people. I tend to start with a screenshot with a good image of something and do an image search on it. Or if there's not a good image, or, I need to go a different way. Because like this, you can't image search that because there's just too many sweaters like that out there. So looking
if you do, it just comes up as Donna from Twitter.
Yeah, that's you gotta crop it so that you're just getting a sweater in. That's
although this is a total sidebar, and I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I had a picture of Cooper with his recorder and the modern automatic kind of like notation for it being accessible said, "Man wearing a suit with a cell phone." I went, "You are so wrong." That's not what is in that picture.
But yeah, so a good old image search is a good way to start with stuff, but you have to think about it both in terms of how people would have described it in that time and how people who don't know so much about clothing describe it now. A lot of adding terminology to stuff, or there were, oh, these are all Liz Sport sweaters. So those all came up pretty easily, except this one, there's not been a lot of them that I found. I see. Kristen has the same one that I have. But there's a gray version of it as well that I used to have when I was sold. But that one's pretty rare, so if you find that one, I recommend you snag it. But I found stuff like, I have Maddie's Liz Sport sweater here on the end. That one I found purely by accident because it was a Liz Sport. I was looking for other Liz Sports, and that popped up, and I was like, wait a second, because it's hard to find. It's so basic, you know. But then you've got other things like, this is a sweater Audrey wore at one point. It's vintage. It doesn't have a brand label in it. So it just says like made by hand in China. It's hand crocheted. So with that one, I had to look at the pattern and count like the number of like little triangles on it to compare, to find out if it was an accurate one. It's a lot of scrolling through Google image searches, a lot of Poshmark, setting up Poshmark. Once you find like the Benetton cardigan that I've been like, that's gotta be Benetton, the Norma's sweater, because of the floating argyle pattern. So it's setting a lot of like gem and Poshmark and everything.
But how different is the technology from the 90s to now to be able to do that?
Yes.
Like, I remember when I first started designing professionally, I was on top of a mountain in North Carolina in the late 90s, and everything was catalog order by phone.
Yeah.
So like the fact that we can now go on the internet and do those kinds of things, and we can hunt things down, and it's really kind of cool.
Yeah, I've thought about with regards to them doing the return and looking for some items. Like I know that they wanted to bring back Harry Truman, and I'm not sure what happened, that he ended up not, but he was looking for his jacket, the one that you noted with the pattern, that Pendleton says it's one of theirs, but they don't have one in their archives. And so they were doing a search for it and trying to find somebody that had something similar, but then he ended up not doing the show, so it didn't matter. But it's like, even just this few years later, really, like the ability to find stuff like that, to recreate scenes, like younger Laura in the woods being able to search and find stuff like that. It's so much easier than it would have been just a few years ago.
How we survived.
Yeah. Do you have anything else specific? Because covered a lot of stuff, but we've got a few minutes left. Yeah, I was going to say if we want to leave a little.
Can you walk us through your pieces?
Oh yeah.
Do you want me to?
Fashion show.
I've got the apron and hat with this in bag, but my husband got me this for Christmas a couple years ago. But it's an Angelica uniform, so it annoys me in the secret history when they say that Norma redesigned the uniforms, because she did not. They were definitely from a company. I've seen this also in I think it's called Why Women Kill. It's a character in that was wearing the same one, and there was, I think it was the first thing that Jamie Lee Curtis filmed was an episode of Columbo, and she was wearing the same uniform. So like, Norman did not design that.
But in the doppelganger universe.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, unless she then made it available.
Yeah.
This sweater was seen on Donna it's when they play the tape, Laura's tape that they found. It's missing a couple little bobbles.
She's not being truthful. Like, she's wearing the green sweater in the sheriff's station. She's finally being truthful.
Yeah. So that one was easy to find, and I have not seen another one since. So it's a shame. This one makes me sad because somebody cut the label out. So that's been such a great thing to get the ones that have labeled in it. Sometimes I've messaged people, like if I'll find a sold listing online, I send them a message like, by any chance, did you take a picture of the label because it's not in your listing? A couple times it's worked out. But I love this one because I think Audrey should have worn this at the pageant just because I love it. But it's basically the same design, the same pattern as a dress that Elizabeth Taylor wore in a movie. And then, of course, Sherilyn Fenn went on to play Elizabeth Taylor in a movie. So I love that. But see, like, looking at this is specifically looking at the way that this is gathered in at the back, the way that it crosses kind of on the front and is flat on the sides was a hint on there. This has unfortunately been altered for somebody shorter than me, so I can't wear it. So, if anybody short wants a photo op, there you go. I'll show you this one. We have the same sweater that Kristen has. I read some theories online noting that the Argyle kind of looks like the owl cave symbol. Of course, this showed up before that, so that's one of the things where it's like, I don't think that there's a connection there, but if we believe in the cosmic idea of things, then absolutely it could. Or we can mentally retcon it as well. It's fine. This is one that Maddie wears at the Double R. She's got a jacket or a sweater on over it when she's standing, so it was hard to get images of that one to track down. But like I said, this one was just pure luck.
I think I have it in the booth.
Oh yeah, you did have a picture of it there. Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
That's nice. But was just pure luck because I was looking for other Liz Sport items. Hashtags on Instagram is another place that I've been able to find some stuff, but again, I have children. I have a now about to start kindergarten, but when he was a little bitty baby, fall asleep on you, get stuck somewhere for a while. So a lot of scrolling, caring for a baby. So it was a lot of time. This is a coat that Donna wears in the movie in Fire Walk with Me. That's the first thing she's seen wearing. It's an Eddie Bauer. If anybody is looking for one, it does fit large, so sweater's small. But it's heavy wool. If anybody would like to feel any of this, you are more than welcome to. This was a white whale piece for me, and they didn't make it in my size. But Shelley wore this blouse in a couple of different episodes. It was actually the top of a dress. It had a dress and skirt, like a camisole top and skirt with a matching sash that came around the middle. So,
but she's often wearing it with green. Is the original one was the dress is intended to be worn with is it white or is it what she's wearing?
I believe I've seen a red skirt and I think there might have been a green skirt. I think there was a blue skirt. There were a couple of
the
different.
under is often a little green. It looks on screen to be a green camisole, but it could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's for the longest time I only found it with the tag cut out, and then I found it with just union tags, which is always a downer because it doesn't say the brand. So I found this one. There was the one time ever an image search popped up, an ad from Montgomery Ward from the early 80s. And so I was able to, so a couple of things I found by these Log Lady sweaters, I found the same way. Also in Montgomery Ward catalog. I found this one first, and I just found this one more recently. I believe that the one she wears is a third color. This one's brown, but the one in the show looks to be green. The catalog makes it look like it's a really bright green. So
but they're frequently using that really orange gel.
That's the thing,
right?
is it's hard to tell
so
what color some things
that orange
are.
gel on the green would take it down in intensity, so it could have been.
Yeah.
It would make sense it was green.
It reminded me of a note from you were saying earlier is because of the filter and also just film things in general, colors can change a lot. So some of the black items might not be black. The jacket that Catherine is wearing at the beginning is actually gray. It's a sweatshirt.
It is.
But like sweatshirt fabric jacket. I first found one and it was a really good deal, but I hesitated and it sold and I didn't realize it was worth a lot of money. So it's a Norma Kamali. And everyone that I've seen then, the couple that I've seen that were screen accurate were like hundreds of dollars. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. But it's, I wish that we had the access to ask some more of these people about their personal items, because that being an item that's worth more, I'm sure that that's something that Piper Laurie probably provided. I think that the red coat that has the cape on it was probably hers originally, because I know that it was hers that was sold at an auction several years ago. I don't know who has it, so if anybody knows who has it,
Gosh,
yeah, I wondered about that. But Pendleton claimed on their site that it was one of theirs, but I've yet to see anything remotely like it, and I love that coat. But the filters used on it, as well as just film in general, can make things look different. I remember many years ago, I went to an exhibition that had some Harry Potter costumes, but the robe that Voldemort wears when he comes back or whatever, spoiler alert, I guess, is actually almost a sage green. So it's the effects and the lighting, everything, that's what they did to make it look like it had, texture, richness to it in the dark.
Well, and sometimes even the light, like that's the whole thing that I talk about all the time, is like I'm doing my thing over here in costumes and scenery's doing their thing. We're trying to do the thing together, but we might not just line up. When the lights hit it, and it creates the magic that pulls it all together. It's like, oh yep, there's the world. It's almost, and so the the filters they use in the film, the gels, the after effects.
Yes.
Like that's really like the layer on the cake that really help finishes building that world. And it distorts things, but it's intentional.
Yes.
They're trying to pull the elements.
Yeah, you just have to consider it when designing. So it's yet another thing that we have to think about. This is the sweater that Lucy wears in the pilot, but I believe this is a different color. I think hers is a gray. It's a more recent find. Another Benetton sweater. Special, lots and lots of those. This saw me at the prom last night. I was wearing this. This is the dress that Rebecca Del Rio wears in The Return. It's Betsy and Adam. There's lots of these online, so if you want one of these, you're probably gonna like it. And then this is another, that's another Liz Sport. This is my Lucy sweater. This is a very comfortable sweater. I highly recommend getting you one of these. But it's all of the graphic designs, the way that they they're reminiscent both of the runes and of the native imagery. And obviously it's not those things, but I believe
It echoes. It's those lines being used over and over again, right? Like you look at all of, when you go out to Keanu and you've got all that wall art that's still there. And I saw another still that I was combing through, and I'm like, it's the check-in desk, and it's like, if you look at it one way, it's two birds looking at each other. If you look at it another way, it's a big face. It's like that duality. Yep. And so like the repeating of these lines, and it's all, he was pulling it together. So even though he's buying they're buying sweaters at Benetton, they're making those specific choices because it's fitting within the structure, the rules of the world, right? Which we think that our everyday world isn't designed, but it is. Like this chair looks the way it does because somebody designed it. I have a friend that does interior design for the U.S. government. She spends all her time arguing over whites. What needs to go in the government stuff. It's all intentional. Like somebody's making those choices, even in our everyday lives. But even more so on the flying screen.
Absolutely. And this is my Audrey sweater. I was very lucky that somebody had posted it on Instagram. It does not have a Darlene label. It just says full fashioned. I've also seen one with a label that says Devon. And it is the 1400 River Road that identified it initially. That wonderful extensive blog post that she has had about that. I haven't posted about this because hers was so thorough, but it's like I need something of my own to contribute.
Is Audrey's black and white? Because yours is definitely brown and green.
Yeah. Hers is black and white. There's been ones that are all pink trees, ones that have the orange an orange instead of the green. There's lots of different versions.
Love it.
But again, it was what she already owned.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's gorgeous. Gorgeous sweater. Gorgeous hair. Perfect hair in that scene. That's a separate thing.
Well, in season 1, she's got that classic 50s hairstyle too. Like even just right down to even her undergarments.
This is great, Dan.
Thank you. You've been a service friend. Thank you so much.
Watching it in 1990, just a quick question. I noticed quickly the Benjamin Corn, you have had a slide for filming. Those so frequent.
No, the polka dots.
Can you speak to what you think maybe the there's some symbolism of that is the character, or have you not? I'll put you on the spot.
Got anything?
I don't have much. I noticed that too. Like Benjamin, he often doesn't fit in the same geometric world of both the place that is supposedly his inn and his business. And I think he's pro Ghostwood, he's anti Ghostwood. He's so like malleable in how he moves through this world that I don't think he fits as neatly in it. And I think that, I think every human has their insecurities that motivate us to do different things. And same with him. He wants money, he wants power, he wants all that kind of stuff. But he doesn't fit in the world, and he doesn't get the world. Like, I have this theory that we see more and more red in Coop's ties as he's trying to figure this out. And he's not necessarily out of balance, but he's discovering something that he didn't know was missing in his life. And he even when Albert comes in for the first time and thinks that Harry is a stupid person, right? And he's like, no, this is like life. He's like coming to life there in a way. And so I think that Ben just doesn't fit. Then there's that whole storyline where the Civil War happens. And I think that he's kooky like everybody else, but he doesn't necessarily align. And that's about the only explanation that I have, not really spending more time. And most of my opinions, because I try really, really hard not to be influenced by other people's designs. Like, when I'm working on a show right now that was a Broadway show, and my choreographer keeps saying, but in the original Broadway production, they did this. I said, I didn't watch that because I'm not doing the original Broadway production. And so I've never been one to go down the rabbit holes as much. I'm a little more preparing this than I have really ever. But they're kind of my thoughts. So I'm going to ruminate on that and see if I can come up with something.
Commented on the costume for the Civil War. I'm interviewing a long time ago, and he said he was unhappy with it. They're all like exactly what they would wear in the Civil War.
They should have been Twin Peaksified. Because if he was really off his rocker, that
he could pull out.
Yeah. But they went to a rental house and like, give me an antebellum gown, give me
That was my thought,
soldier.
that they probably did that. He probably sent somebody from his crew over to a local theater, to see there.
But yeah, I agree. I think it would have been more authentic to it if they were like taking suit jackets and making them into Confederate uniforms, or maybe that's where the 50s full skirt aesthetic comes in, because the Dior new look originally was based on antebellum fashion. Like, he was not doing something new there. I have a whole conversation on that for another day about how that fashion repeats itself at a time where women were being forced back into and back to the Victorian times. But like, there's space for that could have fit in the world, right? We're already channeling that 50s aesthetic. So I agree. I would have that's one of the storylines, that and the Evelyn Marsh stuff, that I kind of go, yeah, that's there. I don't have to acknowledge it.
I'm cool with that. That's all right. It's one of the moments I love is when he's wearing the tracksuit. After that,
Oh my God!
I haven't been able to find one of my own, but I know it's Fila because you can see it. That one's easy. But, and with the celery stick,
Huge carrot. Like, what the heck is that?
I love that so much.
It's so fun.
That did remind me though that my personal theory, when Coop becomes a townsperson, he doesn't wear a uniform even though he's been deputized. He could easily go from one uniform to the next. And I've heard, I haven't read it personally, I've heard some people said that that Lynch didn't like that he didn't want to see him out of uniform. Apparently it was tough luck, I guess. But he's wearing, as far as I know, there are so many plaids that it's so difficult to identify those items. Yeah, and there's not an accessible catalog of the different plaid patterns that Pendleton has made. But I believe that they're all Pendleton shirts. I just imagine him going into Horns and just being like one in every color. Like his puffer vest is an Eddie Bauer. But if you look at all of the people in the town, the person that he dresses most like, I feel like, is Pete Martell.
Say that, yeah.
And I think that it's cool because, like, as far as people that I would align him with spiritually in the town, it would be Pete Martell. And the idea that he goes in this town, he has this idea of, you know, this is so beautiful. I love so much the trees, the bunnies, you know. He's acting as somebody who belongs there. And I wonder how much of it is, and there's something to be said for, as someone on the spectrum, for it being a masking tool of I am the FBI and this is what I do, and he's put on his FBI outfit and he is doing that, and now he's like, I am being a twins person and I am going to follow this other person, and so I'm not even aligning himself visually with the sheriff department because he is making himself subservient. He's filling the role that he needs to. Still doing, you know, every bit of the job that he would. But I think that's cool things to look at. All of it's so interesting to look at.
Oh, yeah. This is we could talk about it forever.
Yeah, this is stuff I think about in the shower and like cooking dinner and like
Yeah.
Did anybody else have some questions?
Oh yes, 100%. Even down to the damn car, right? Like it's totally film noir, but it also fits in the rules of the world, right? She's femme fatale, but she's got the same rules of clothing, and you know, and James has a type, and you know, but yeah, it's not completely out of left field. I do feel like the Civil War thing could have fit better. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Kristen, you're 100% right. It's like classic, and the lighting throughout the show is very film noir, right? Has anybody ever done a lighting panel? I would love to hear a lighting panel because there's much like, especially because who was I talking to about the Chris Carter crossover with X-Files and the lighting, the way the lights are used and the flashlights and the filming in the dark. I think it was Britain. I think Britain, she was at the Airbnb. And so, yeah, like lighting is another one of those areas that people don't think about. They just like, it's like, well, we can see them. Well, if you can see them, that's great. They're doing half their job, but they're also diverting focus. And so I think that would be a really cool panel for somebody to look into, because even in a stage play, you look where the production team wants you to look. And that's done through emphasis and contrast and lighting and direction and all kinds of diversionary tactics, right? And that's all to support the text. Everything is to support the text so that you get the important information. And so, yeah, very film noir.
Got a lot of non-costume ideas about that, but we'll save that.
But yeah, we're gonna say that.
You get a lunch or something. Right. Anybody else?